Hey there. You guys gave us a ton of interesting stuff to look into about Hikikomori.
Yeah.
So let's dive in and see what we can uncover together.
Yeah,
It seems like there's a lot more to this than just being a recluse, right?
absolutely.
We're going to be looking at how it's showing up all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
what might be causing it, and what people are doing to help.
Yeah.
Did you know that terms like failure to launch might actually be describing similar patterns of social withdrawal?
It's fascinating.
We'll
Yeah.
get to that,
Yeah.
and how things like family dynamics and even all this digital stuff we're surrounded by might play a role.
What's fascinating is that this topic really challenges how we think about social interaction, especially in today's world.
Okay, so first things first,
Right.
let's define hikikomori.
Okay.
It's basically severe social withdrawal and isolation that lasts for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking 6 months or more,
Yeah.
sometimes even years.
Right.
And it's not just about being an introvert or enjoying some alone time.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond that.
It really does.
It really disconnects people from the world and impacts their daily life, work, relationships, everything.
It's important to remember that it's not just a phase or a personality quirk.
Right.
It significantly impacts people's ability to function in everyday life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How does that play out in real life?
Uh,
Does anything in your sources jump out as an example?
Absolutely.
One of your sources described a young man who spent all his time in his bedroom, avoiding any contact with family or friends.
Okay.
He even refused to leave his room for meals or basic hygiene.
Wow.
This went on for over a year, and his family was incredibly worried.
Wow, that's heartbreaking. You can really see how this impacts not just the individual, but the whole family.
Exactly. It's a ripple effect.
Speaking of assumptions,
Yeah.
I bet you thought this was just a Japanese thing, right? But look at what we found in your sources from Europe and the US.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
While it originated in Japan,
Yeah.
hikikomori is increasingly recognized in Western societies too. Really?
Countries like the US, UK, Spain, France,
Wow.
they're all seeing similar patterns of social withdrawal.
So it's a global issue then, not just a cultural quirk.
Yeah.
What's your take on why that is?
It seems to be tied to larger trends we're seeing across the globe.
Okay.
Rising societal pressures, economic anxieties, and how much technology is changing how we interact.
Wow.
It's like different cultures are experiencing the same pressures, but manifesting them in similar ways.
That's interesting, and it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what's causing this?
Yeah.
Is it the same everywhere, or are there different factors at play in different places?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
In Japan, it's been linked to the economic downturn in the 1990s and the intense pressure to succeed in school and work.
Mm-hmm.
But even globally, we're seeing similar things: burnout, dissatisfaction with work-life balance, and poor working conditions.
So it's not just about individual psychology, it's about the environment too.
It's both, actually.
Okay.
Mental health challenges like anxiety and depression definitely play a role,
Yeah.
but it's this complex mix of personal vulnerabilities and these external pressures.
And then there's the whole digital age thing.
Right.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah,
On the one hand, technology helps us connect.
absolutely.
But on the other, it can be isolating.
Yeah,
Especially if we're spending all our time online and not engaging in real-life interactions.
mm-hmm.
It's like we're connected, but not really connected.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
Okay.
In fact, some of your sources use terms like internet addiction or failure to launch to describe behaviors that are similar to hikikomori.
Oh, wow.
It's as if the digital world can both facilitate and exacerbate social withdrawal.
So we've got this mix of mental health stuff, societal pressures, and the impact of technology.
Yeah.
But what about families?
Mm-hmm.
Do they play a role in all of this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Family dynamics are incredibly important. Some of your sources point to things like parental mental health, how families communicate, and even financial stress as factors that can contribute to a sense of isolation.
Okay.
Like this whole system of interconnected things, both within the individual and their environment.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how something that was once considered specific to Japan is now being recognized in so many different cultures.
Right.
Your sources from Europe really highlight this.
Okay, so Europe.
Yeah.
What's the story there? What did you find in the research?
Well, you've got studies from places like Spain and Ukraine
Okay.
that really back up what we've been talking about, the universal aspects of social withdrawal and the impact it has on mental health.
Yeah.
For example, one study in Spain found that nearly 2% of young adults met the criteria for hikikomori,
Wow.
and they were more likely to have depression and anxiety.
Wow. 2%. That's not insignificant.
Right.
It sounds like it's more common than people might think.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's not just those two countries. We're seeing evidence of hikikomori-like symptoms popping up in places like Hungary, France, Italy, all over Europe, really.
Wow.
It seems like this phenomenon is becoming more and more recognized as a global concern.
It sounds like Europe is seeing a lot of the same patterns as Japan, but maybe for different reasons.
Yeah.
What about your sources from the UK?
Yeah.
Are they seeing the same things, or is there something unique about how this is showing up there?
Researchers in the UK are definitely starting to pay more attention to this phenomenon.
Okay.
They're calling for a deeper understanding of severe social withdrawal within their own context, recognizing that the risk factors might be slightly different from those in Japan.
What kind of differences are they talking about?
Well, they're seeing how economic pressures and societal expectations unique to Western society might be playing a bigger role.
Okay.
Think about things like the pressure to go to university, get a high-paying job, buy a house.
Right.
These kinds of expectations can be incredibly stressful, especially in today's economy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Different cultures have different pressure points, and those pressures can push people towards withdrawal in different ways.
Makes sense.
And what's really concerning is that preliminary findings suggest that hikikomori-like behavior is on the rise in the UK.
Oh, wow.
This is prompting serious conversations about public health implications and the need for tailored interventions.
It's a wake-up call, isn't it?
It is.
It shows that we can't just import solutions from Japan.
Right.
We need to develop strategies that are specific to each cultural context.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us across the pond to North America.
Okay, so what's the picture like in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Are they seeing the same things?
You know, it's interesting. Case studies from the U.S. suggest a growing awareness of hikikomori among mental health professionals.
Okay.
It seems like they're starting to recognize it as a distinct phenomenon,
Mm.
whereas before it might have been overlooked or misdiagnosed as something else.
So are you saying it was always there, but we just weren't paying attention?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. It highlights the need for greater cultural sensitivity in how we diagnose mental health conditions.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be equipped to recognize hikikomori regardless of someone's cultural background.
It's about seeing the person, not just the label.
Right.
So we've got all these case studies from around the world.
Yeah.
What are some of the common threads that you're seeing when you look at them all together?
Despite the cultural differences and the variations in triggers,
Right.
the core experience of isolation and withdrawal seems to be pretty consistent. It's
Yeah.
almost like a universal human experience, feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, and retreating from the world.
So even though the specific reasons might be different, the end result is kind of the same?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see similar themes of strained family relationships, the burden of societal expectations, and individual psychological vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
It's as if these factors in different combinations create a pathway towards withdrawal.
Like a recipe with slightly different ingredients,
Right.
but a similar final dish.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And now that we've explored the global spread and the common threads,
Right.
I think it's important to shift gears and talk about what can be done to help.
Okay, so let's talk solutions.
Yeah.
We've been talking about how serious this is.
Yeah.
But is there anything that can be done to help people who are experiencing hikikomori?
There are definitely things that can be done,
Okay.
but it's not easy.
Right.
The first thing to understand is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
It requires a multifaceted approach,
Okay.
a combination of individual support, societal changes, and a whole lot of patience.
That sounds pretty complex.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin? What kind of things are people trying?
Well, on the individual level,
Yeah.
there are a variety of therapeutic interventions that are showing promise. You've got things like home visitation programs, where therapists actually go to the homes of individuals who are withdrawn.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like taking therapy directly to the person instead of expecting them to come to you. Are there other examples of that kind of creative thinking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Animal-assisted therapy has also shown some positive results.
Really?
The idea is that interacting with animals can help reduce anxiety and loneliness,
Mhm.
which can be really helpful for people who are struggling with social withdrawal.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
I know. Just spending time with my dog makes me feel better.
Sure.
What about technology? Can that be used to help people reconnect?
Yeah.
It seems kind of ironic, given that we talked about how technology can also contribute to the problem.
It is ironic.
Yeah.
But yes, technology can be part of the solution too.
Okay.
There's some fascinating things happening in that area.
Cool.
For example, some researchers are developing augmented reality games that encourage social interaction.
Wow.
They're designed to get people out of their homes and interacting with others in a fun and engaging way.
That's really cool.
It
It's like
is.
using technology to fight technology.
Right.
What else are they doing with tech?
There's also a lot of research being done with virtual reality as a form of exposure therapy.
Okay.
The idea is to create virtual environments where people can gradually practice social situations without the fear and anxiety of real-life interactions.
So it's like a stepping stone to help people build their confidence and skills
Yeah.
before they have to face the real world.
Exactly.
Huh.
But it's not all about fancy therapies and technology.
Right.
Traditional counseling and support groups are still incredibly important,
Yeah.
both for individuals and their families.
That makes sense.
It's about having someone to talk to, someone who understands what you're going through.
And don't underestimate the power of peer support and community engagement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Connecting with others who have gone through similar experiences can be incredibly validating and empowering.
Right.
It helps people realize that they're not alone in their struggles.
So it's about building a sense of belonging, of
Mhm.
being part of something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful thing. You know, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I keep thinking about how crucial early intervention is.
Right?
The sooner we can recognize the signs of social withdrawal
Mm-hmm.
and provide support,
Right.
the better the chances of preventing long-term isolation.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like catching something in the early stages before it gets too serious.
Right.
But what does that look like in real life? Who's responsible for spotting the signs and stepping in?
It's a shared responsibility, really.
Okay.
Schools, community organizations, mental health professionals, they
Right.
all play a vital role.
Yeah.
Teachers, for example, are often the first to notice changes in a student's behavior,
Okay.
like withdrawal from social activities or a drop in academic performance.
So it's about being more aware,
Yeah.
more observant,
Mm-hmm.
and having the resources to act when something seems off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about recognizing the signs.
Yeah.
It's also about creating environments that support connection and well-being.
Okay.
This means tackling the bigger societal issues that we talked about earlier.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
We've been talking about individual solutions like therapy and support groups.
Mhm.
But what about these bigger societal factors?
Yeah.
What can be done about those?
Well, government policies have a huge role to play here.
Okay.
Initiatives like affordable housing, job security, and mental health funding
Right.
are all crucial in creating a society where individuals feel less pressure and more supported.
So it's about creating a safety net, a system where people have the resources they need to thrive and don't feel like they have to retreat from the world.
Precisely.
And we can't forget about education.
Absolutely.
Right.
Schools can play a huge role in prevention by reducing academic pressures,
Okay.
incorporating mental health education into the curriculum, and providing career counseling that encourages diverse pathways.
It's like giving young people the tools and the support they need to navigate life's challenges without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Right.
And finally, community engagement is vital,
Okay.
fostering a sense of belonging through volunteer opportunities, social clubs, group activities. These are all ways to combat isolation and create a more connected society.
This whole deep dive has really opened my eyes.
Yeah.
I didn't realize hikikomori was such a widespread issue.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and thinking about everything you gave us, it makes you wonder how we can create communities that are better at supporting each other,
Yeah.
especially now that everyone's online so much.
Right.
What do you think? What are the biggest takeaways from all this?
For me, the biggest takeaway is that hikikomori is a complex issue with multiple layers.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual psychology. It's about the interplay between individual vulnerabilities and the pressures of modern society.
So it's not about blaming people for being withdrawn. It's about understanding the context, the environment,
Yeah.
all the factors that contribute to this phenomenon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's really struck me is the resilience of the human spirit.
Oh, wow.
Even in the face of such profound isolation, there's always hope for connection, for healing, for finding meaning and purpose in life.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's a lot we can all do to create a world where fewer people feel compelled to retreat from society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It starts with awareness, with understanding, with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
It's about reaching out to those who are struggling, offering support,
Right.
and creating communities that foster genuine connection.
Well, thanks for diving deep with us today.
It was my pleasure.
We hope this conversation has given you a new perspective on Hikikomori
Yeah,
and inspired you to think about the role we all play in creating a more connected and supportive world.
absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.